Imagine this. It's your best friend's bachelorette party. The music is pounding, and you are desperate to find the entertainment. You spot the most devastatingly handsome man in the room, 6'4", dangerous eyes, wearing a suit that screams sin, and you assume he's the stripper you hired. So, what do? You march right up to him, shove a crumpled $50 bill into his breast pocket, and demand a private dance with no boundaries. But what happens when that man isn't a stripper at all? What happens when you walk into a boardroom the next morning and realize that the man you tried to tip is the ruthless alpha king of the city? He is your new boss, and he has kept your $50 as a deposit for a dance he fully intends to collect. Welcome back to the pack, and a massive hello to our new listeners here at Linus Romantasy Collection. We are diving straight into a story filled with spicy misunderstandings, possessive alphas, and a chihuahua with a Napoleon complex. Before we let the chaos unfold, please take a second to smash that like button, share this video with your book bestie, hit subscribe, and turn on that notification bell icon so you never miss a single moment of the romance. And I want to know who is here with us today. Jump into the comments section right now and tell me, where in the world are you listening from? Let's see how far our pack extends. Now grab your snacks and let's get into the story. Chapter 1. The $50 Mistake. The bass at Club Velvet didn't just vibrate the floor, it rattled Chloe Hart's teeth. "Remind me again," Chloe shouted over the thumping rhythm of a remix that sounded like a robot having a seizure, "why I agreed to this." Maya, wearing a sash that screamed bride-to-be in glittery pink font, grabbed Chloe's shoulders and shook her. "Because you love me, and because you need to get out of your office. You've been buried in crisis management files for 3 weeks straight. You smell like copier toner and loneliness." "I do not smell like loneliness," Chloe muttered, adjusting the strap of her little black dress. "I smell like efficiency and expensive coffee." She swiped a stray lock of hair back into her messy bun. Truthfully, Maya was right. Chloe's PR firm, Heart Solutions, had been fighting fires for minor celebrities all month. She was exhausted. She wanted to be home in her sweatpants, eating takeout, and explaining to her neurotic chihuahua, Bolt, why he couldn't murder the mailman. "Okay, look." Maya pointed toward a heavy velvet curtain near the VIP section. "The entertainment is supposed to be over there. Go check if he's ready. I need another tequila shot before I face a shirtless fireman or whatever cliché you booked." Chloe sighed. "Fine, but if I see a cowboy hat, I'm leaving." Chloe weaved through the sweaty crowd of dancers, dodging spilled drinks and flailing limbs. She reached the secluded VIP cordon. The area was dimly lit, smelling of expensive leather and cedar wood, a sharp contrast to the stale beer smell of the main floor. Standing near the curtain, with his back to her, was a man. Chloe paused. He wasn't wearing a fireman's outfit. He was wearing a suit, a dark, immaculately tailored charcoal suit that hugged a set of shoulders broad enough to carry a small sedan. He was checking his watch, radiating an aura of impatience. Wow, Chloe thought, her crisis manager brain momentarily shutting down. The agency really upgraded the talent. He turned around. Chloe's breath hitched. He was devastating. High cheekbones, a jawline sharp enough to cut glass, and eyes the color of molten gold. He looked dangerous, expensive, and completely out of place in a rowdy bachelorette lineup. He looked at her with a bored, brooding intensity that made her toes curl in her heels. The tequila Chloe had consumed earlier gave her a sudden, stupid burst of confidence. She walked right up to him, digging into her clutch. "You're late," Chloe said, trying to sound authoritative. She pulled out a crumpled $50 bill, the only cash she had. "My friend is over there waiting. We don't have all night." The man blinked. He looked down at the $50 in her hand, then back up at her face. His expression shifted from boredom to amusement. One dark eyebrow arched perfectly. "Am I?" His voice was a deep, rich baritone, wrapped in a crisp British accent that instantly melted Chloe's knees. "Yes," Chloe insisted, shoving the bill into the breast pocket of his expensive suit jacket. She patted his chest. It was hard as a rock beneath the silk wool. Consider this a tip to get things started. Now, how much for a private dance? And make it dirty, no distinct boundaries. It's her last night of freedom." The man looked down at his pocket, where the tip of President Grant's stern face was poking out. A slow, predatory smirk spread across his face. It was the kind of smile a wolf gives a lamb before dinner. "A private dance?" he repeated, his voice dropping an octave, vibrating through her chest. He took a step closer, invading her personal space. He smelled like rain and storm clouds. "For you, love? It might cost you significantly more than $50. Chloe's heart hammered against her ribs. Suddenly, the velvet curtain was ripped aside. Mr. Colton. A mountain of a man with a headset, Big Mike, the head of security, rushed forward, looking terrified. "Sir, I am so sorry. The perimeter breach, I didn't see her." "It's fine, Mike," the British man said, his eyes never leaving Chloe's flushed face. "Sir?" Big Mike continued, panting. "The board is waiting at the tower for the emergency quarterly review. Your car is out back." Chloe froze. Her PR brain rebooted instantly. Suit, board meeting, security detail. Sir, this wasn't the stripper. Chloe looked at the $50 sticking out of the billionaire's pocket. She looked at his amused gold eyes. She looked at the exit sign glowing green across the club. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Run along now," the man murmured, leaning down so his breath tickled her ear. "Before I decide to keep the deposit?" Chloe didn't wait. She turned on her heel and sprinted into the crowd, leaving her dignity and her $50 behind. Chapter 2. The Walk of Shame to the Boardroom. The next morning, the sun felt like a personal attack. Chloe sat in the driver's seat of her vintage 1965 cherry red Ford Mustang, gripping the steering wheel as if it were a lifeline. She was parked outside the gleaming glass monolith of Colton Enterprises. "You can do this," she told her reflection in the rearview mirror. "You are Chloe Hart. You are the spin doctor. You once convinced the press that a senator's leaked sext was actually a typo. You can handle a pitch meeting." Her phone buzzed. It was Sophie, her Gen Z assistant. "Bestie, where are you?" The vibes in the lobby are intimidating. The receptionist looks like a supermodel, and I think the security guard smelled my fear. Chloe typed back, "In the parking lot, coming up. Do not TikTok the lobby." She took a deep breath, grabbed her briefcase, and stepped out. This contract was vital. Hart Solutions needed a big fish, and Colton Enterprises was the whale. They had reached out yesterday regarding sensitive security leaks that required immediate damage control. Chloe smoothed her navy blue power suit, adjusted her glasses, and marched into the building. She was a professional. Last night was just a fever dream, a hallucination brought on by cheap tequila and loud bass. The odds of running into that specific British man in a city of 8 million people were statistically 0. 10 minutes later, Chloe was ushered into the executive boardroom on the 90th floor. The room was sleek, cold, and silent. A long mahogany table stretched out before her. Seated around it were 3 people. On the left, a stressed-looking man with dark circles under his eyes, tapping a pen nervously, Weston Grady, the chief of operations. Next to him, an older, grumpy-looking man in a tweed jacket, Arthur Penhaligon. And at the head of the table, Chloe stopped dead in the doorway. Her briefcase felt suddenly heavy. It was him. The stripper. He was wearing a different suit today, navy blue, perfectly cut, but the arrogance was identical. He sat with a stillness that was unnerving, watching her walk in with those piercing gold eyes. "Ms. Hart." Weston stood up, extending a hand. "Thank you for coming on such short notice. I'm Weston Grady. This is Arthur Penhaligon. And this," he gestured to the man at the head of the table, "is our CEO, Stephen Colton." Stephen didn't stand up. He just leaned back in his leather chair, steepling his fingers. A ghost of a smirk played on his lips. "Ms. Hart," Stephen said. The British accent hit her like a physical wave, bringing back the sensory memory of the club's VIP lounge. "We've heard interesting things about your aggressive negotiation style." Chloe's face burned. She forced herself to walk to her chair and sit down, praying the floor would open up and swallow her whole. Mr. Colton? She managed to say, her voice tight but steady. It's a pleasure to formally meet you. Formally, he repeated, tasting the word. Let's get to business, Arthur grumbled, eyeing Chloe with suspicion. We have a leak. Photos. Rumors. We need it buried. Chloe opened her briefcase, her hands shaking slightly. Right. Crisis management. That's what I do. I need to know the nature of the leak. Wild animals, Weston said quickly. Wolves, sightings in the city. People are panicking. We need you to spin it. Chloe nodded, taking notes, trying desperately to avoid looking at the head of the table. Okay, wolves, we can spin that. Viral marketing campaign for a new video game? Or perhaps a zoo escape hoax? I'll need to see the footage. Excellent, Stephen said softly. The meeting went on for 20 minutes. Chloe was brilliant. She pitched strategies, outlined non-disclosure agreements, and dazzled Weston and Arthur. She was in the zone. She almost forgot who she was talking to. I think we've heard enough, Stephen interrupted suddenly. The room went silent. He reached into his jacket pocket. Chloe's heart stopped. Slowly, deliberately, Stephen slid a crumpled green piece of paper across the polished mahogany table. It stopped right in front of Chloe's notebook. It was her $50 bill. General Grant stared up at her, judging her sins. I believe this belongs to you, Ms. Hart, Stephen said, his voice smooth as velvet. Weston looked confused. Sir? Just a prior transaction, Stephen said, his eyes locking onto Chloe's. Unless, of course, you'd like to keep it on the table, I'm told my rates are quite reasonable. Chloe stared at the bill. She refused to touch it. If she took it back, she was acknowledging the embarrassment. She stood up, smoothing her skirt, her face flaming red. Keep it, she said, her voice tight. Consider it a down payment on my silence. The contract covers all other services. Stephen's smirk deepened. Then you're hired. Chapter 3. The Non-Disclosure Agreement. I need you to sign the NDA in blood. Okay, maybe not blood, but digital ink that is legally binding in 70 countries. Chloe was pacing in her office later that afternoon, holding her phone to her ear. Sophie, please tell me you picked up Bolt from the groomer. I have to go back to Colton Tower to finalize the paperwork and get the encrypted files. So, about that, Sophie's voice crackled over the line. The groomer called, Bolt bit the blow-dryer, and then he tried to bite the groomer's husband. They banned him. You have to pick him up. Like, now. Chloe groaned, looking at the ceiling. He's 4 pounds of rage in a fur coat. Why does he hate men so much? Trauma? Or maybe he's just a feminist icon, Sophie suggested, unhelpfully. Anyway, you have to get him. I can't do it. I'm still setting up the social listening dashboards for the Colton account like you asked. Chloe grabbed her keys. Fine. I'll pick him up, but I have to go straight to Colton's office. I can't be late on the first day. An hour later, Chloe was walking through the pristine marble lobby of Colton Enterprises, carrying a designer dog carrier that was vibrating with low, demonic growls. Shh, Bolt, please, Chloe hissed at the bag. These floors cost more than my life. Do not pee on them. She reached the top floor. Weston was waiting for her, looking even more stressed than before. Ms. Hart. Good. You have the tablet? Weston asked, eyeing the bag. Is that a cat? It's a chihuahua named Bolt, Chloe said. My assistant had a crisis. He's harmless. As if on cue, Bolt let out a snarl that sounded like a chainsaw hitting a metal pipe. Right, Weston said, taking a step back. Mr. Colton is in his office. He needs to countersign the NDA personally. Chloe walked into the massive corner office. It was beautiful, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline, dark furniture and minimal decor. Stephen was standing by the window, looking out at the gathering storm clouds. He turned as she entered. He had discarded his jacket and rolled up his sleeves, revealing forearms that were thick with muscle and dusted with dark hair. Ms. Hart, he said. And guest. This is Bolt, Chloe said apologetically, setting the bag down. I'm sorry. Scheduling conflict. I'll keep him in the bag. I like dogs, Stephen said, walking toward her. He doesn't like men, Chloe warned, stepping in front of the bag. Seriously, he goes for the ankles. He's a rescue. He has trust issues. Let him out. Mr. Colton, I don't want a lawsuit when he draws blood. Let him out, Chloe. It was the first time he used her first name. The command in his voice was subtle, but it made Chloe's hands move automatically. She unzipped the bag. Bolt shot out like a fuzzy missile. He scrabbled on the hardwood floor, barking his high-pitched war cry, and charged straight at Stephen's shiny Italian leather shoes. Chloe lunged forward. Bolt, no! Stephen didn't move. He didn't flinch. He just looked down at the tiny charging dog. His eyes flashed. Just for a microsecond, a bright, luminous gold. A low, barely audible rumble vibrated in his chest. Bolt skidded to a halt inches from Stephen's foot. The dog froze. He stopped barking instantly. Bolt's ears flattened against his head. He let out a pathetic whimper, tucked his tail between his legs, and rolled over onto his back, exposing his belly in total, abject submission. Chloe's jaw dropped. She looked from the dog to Stephen. Stephen crouched down slowly. He reached out a large hand and scratched Bolt behind the ears. The dog closed his eyes, trembling happily. Good boy, Stephen murmured. Chloe stood up, bewildered. How did you do that? He hates everyone. He tried to bite the mailman yesterday because he sneezed. Stephen stood up, wiping his hand on a handkerchief. He looked at Chloe, that amused smirk playing on his lips again. Animals are excellent judges of character, Chloe. They know who the alpha is. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to that husky whisper. Perhaps you should take a lesson from him. 4. The Spin Doctor. Code RED Bestie. It's trending. Downtown Monster is literally number 3 on Twitter right now, right under some K-pop star's birthday. Chloe clamped the phone between her shoulder and her ear, typing furiously on her laptop as she marched down the hallway of the 90th floor. Sophie, read me the tweet. The viral one. User City Sleepless says, saw a bear dog thing eating a dumpster behind 5th Street. It looked at me and my soul left my body. Pic attached. It's blurry, but Chloe, it looks big. Chloe burst into the conference room affectionately dubbed the War Room. Weston Grady looked like he was about to hyperventilate into a paper bag. Arthur Penhaligon was pacing, muttering about cleaning up the mess the old-fashioned way. And Stephen Colton? He was sitting at the head of the table, calm as a frozen lake, spinning a fountain pen between his fingers. We have a situation, Chloe announced, slamming her laptop onto the table. She projected the blurry photo onto the smart screen. It showed a hulking, shadowed silhouette with glowing eyes in a dark alley. That, Arthur growled, pointing at the screen, is a disaster. I told the young ones to stay indoors during the pre-shift jitters. Arthur, Stephen's voice was low, cutting through the room like a knife. Quiet. He turned his gold-flecked eyes to Chloe. What is the play, Ms. Hart? We don't deny it, Chloe said, her mind racing at 100 miles an hour. Denial makes people dig deeper. If we say it's a hoax, the conspiracy theorists will camp out on 5th Street with thermal cameras. So we admit there is a monster? Weston squeaked. No, Chloe smirked, tapping her keyboard. We admit there is a marketing campaign. She pulled up a mock-up graphic she had designed in 5 minutes. It featured the Colton Enterprises logo and a stylized, gritty silhouette of a wolf. We leak a statement to TechCrunch in 10 minutes, Chloe explained, pacing the room. Colton Enterprises is secretly developing an augmented reality urban exploration game. Project Hunter. The monster people saw? It was a beta test projection glitch. High-tech holograms. The room went silent. Stephen stopped spinning his pen. He leaned forward, resting his chin on his hand. A slow, appreciative smile spread across his face. You want to tell the world that our slips are actually sophisticated technology? Exactly, Chloe said, feeling the adrenaline rush she lived for. It explains the sightings. It explains why you can't catch it. And best of all, it makes Colton Enterprises look like innovators, not harborers of cryptids. The stock price will probably go up. Arthur blinked, stunned. That is actually brilliant. I know, Chloe said. She looked at Stephen. I need you to tweet a vague, cryptic emoji. Maybe a wolf and a joystick. Send the internet into a frenzy. Stephen stood up. He moved with that unnerving grace, closing the distance between them until he was looming over her. He smelled of rain and expensive cologne. You are terrifyingly good at lying, Chloe, he murmured, his British accent thick. I don't lie, Mr. Colton, Chloe corrected, tilting her head back to meet his gaze, refusing to be intimidated by his height. I manage the truth. There's a difference. Is there? He took a step closer. The air between them crackled with static electricity. You're bossy. I'm not used to people telling me what to tweet. Maybe you need to be bossed around more often, Chloe shot back, without thinking. Weston gasped audibly in the corner. Stephen's eyes darkened. He didn't look angry. He looked hungry. Careful, Ms. Hart, he whispered, his voice vibrating in her chest. I might start enjoying it. Chapter 5. The Hunger. It was 11 p.m. The storm outside lashed against the reinforced glass of the skyscraper, but inside the executive suite, it was quiet. Chloe rubbed her temples, staring at the press release drafts. The AR game lie had worked perfectly. The internet was buzzing with excitement for a game that didn't exist, and the downtown monster trend had turned into a fan forum for vaporware. You look like you're about to collapse, a deep voice rumbled. Chloe jumped. Stephen was leaning against the doorframe of the temporary office they had set up for her. He had discarded his tie, and the top 2 buttons of his white dress shirt were undone, revealing a hint of tan skin. I'm fine, Chloe lied, stifling a yawn, just finalizing the bots. Sophie has a script running to flood Reddit with fake game theories. You need to eat, Stephen said. He walked in, carrying 2 flat, steaming boxes. I ordered pizza. Chloe's stomach gave a treacherous growl. Oh, thank God. Please tell me it's not something pretentious like truffle oil and arugula. Meat lovers, Stephen said, setting the boxes on her desk. Extra meat. Quadruple meat, actually. I was famished. They sat on the leather sofa in the corner of the office. Chloe took a slice, moaning as the cheese hit her tongue. Okay, you're forgiven for the cryptic brooding earlier. This is amazing. Stephen watched her eat with an intensity that made her pause. He wasn't eating like a CEO. He was eating like a starving man. He decimated 3 slices in the time it took her to finish 1 crust. So, Stephen said, wiping his mouth with a napkin, why are you here, Chloe? Not here in the office. I mean, why is a woman as vibrant as you spending her Friday night eating pizza with a client? I'm married to the job. Chloe shrugged, picking at a pepperoni. It's safer. Jobs don't ghost you. Jobs don't lie about their crazy exes. Jobs pay you. Cynical, Stephen observed. Realistic, she corrected. What about you? You're the billionaire king of the city. Why aren't you out at Club Velvet with a model on each arm? Stephen's expression shifted. A shadow passed over his face. I have responsibilities. A very large family. They rely on me for protection, for guidance. It leaves little time for models. A big family? Chloe raised an eyebrow. I didn't see any photos on your desk. They are unconventional, Stephen said vaguely. He leaned back. Stretching his arm along the back of the sofa behind her head, he didn't touch her, but his heat radiated toward her. And finding a partner who can handle my lifestyle is difficult. Most people run when they see the teeth. Chloe laughed. The teeth? What, are you a shark in the boardroom? Something like that, he murmured. He turned his head, his nose flaring slightly as if he was inhaling her perfume. You smell like vanilla and old books. It's soothing. Chloe's heart skipped a beat. The compliment was so specific, so intimate. It's my shampoo. It's intoxicating, he said, his voice dropping to that dangerous whisper. He leaned in, just an inch. Chloe froze. She wanted him to kiss her. God, she wanted to kiss the arrogant British pizza-eating billionaire. Suddenly, Stephen stiffened. He pulled back abruptly, his jaw clenching. He stood up, putting distance between them. "I should get you a car," he said, his voice rough. "It's late. The storm is getting worse." Chloe blinked, feeling the loss of his warmth instantly. Right. The storm. She didn't know why he had pulled away, but for a second she could have sworn his eyes had flashed gold again. Chapter 6. The Dog Whisperer. Saturday morning was supposed to be Chloe's sanctuary. Sweatpants, no makeup, and a dramatic retelling of her week to Bolt, who usually listened with judgmental silence. "And then he just pulled away, Bolt," Chloe complained, scrubbing a dish in her tiny kitchen. "One second we were having a moment, and the next he looked like he wanted to eat me, and not in the fun way." Bolt yipped from his spot on the rug, gnawing on a squeaky toy shaped like a mailman. Knock. Knock, knock. Chloe froze. She looked at the door. She wasn't expecting anyone. Sophie usually texted outside before arriving. She walked to the door and looked through the peephole. She gasped and jumped back. It was Stephen. He was wearing casual clothes, dark jeans and a black t-shirt that fit him so tightly it should be illegal. He held a sleek, silver briefcase. "Chloe?" His voice came through the wood. "I know you're in there. I can hear your heart rate." Is he insane? Chloe thought, glancing at her reflection. She smoothed her oversized t-shirt, which read, "I'm sorry for what I said when I was hungry," and opened the door. "Stephen? What are you doing here? How do you know where I live?" "HR files," he said shamelessly. He held up the briefcase. "The encrypted drive for the weekend monitoring. Weston forgot to give it to you." "You came all the way to Brooklyn to deliver a flash drive?" Chloe crossed her arms. "I like to be thorough." He looked past her. "May I come in?" "Sure, enter the chaos." Chloe sighed, stepping aside. Stephen stepped into her apartment. Immediately, the space felt half the size. He seemed to take up all the air in the room. He looked around at her messy bookshelf, the pile of laundry on the chair, and the half-eaten bagel on the counter. Suddenly, a low growl erupted from the floor. Bolt came charging around the corner, teeth bared, ready to defend his territory against the intruder. "Bolt, no!" Chloe shouted, diving for the dog. But Bolt didn't attack. He skidded to a halt in front of Stephen's boots, sniffed once, and then did the unthinkable. He started wagging his tail. His whole body wiggled. He let out a happy yip and pawed at Stephen's laces. Stephen smirked. He crouched down and scratched Bolt's chest. "Hello, little warrior." "You have got to be kidding me," Chloe groaned. "That dog is a micro-terrorist who bites people for sneezing, but he loves you? You're bribing him. I know it." "I told you," Stephen said, standing up. "He has good taste." He walked toward her kitchen. "Is your sink dripping?" "What? Oh, yeah," Chloe said, embarrassed. "The handle is stuck. The super is supposed to come fix it on Monday. It's been driving me crazy." Stephen walked over to the sink. "This one?" "Yeah, but be careful. It's really jammed. You need a wren." Stephen casually reached out, grabbed the rusted metal handle and turned it. There was a screech of metal, and then silence. The drip stopped. He tightened it with a casual flick of his wrist that made the pipes groan. It looked effortless, like he was twisting a bottle cap, not rusted plumbing. He turned to look at her, wiping a speck of rust from his thumb. "Fixed." Chloe stared at his arms. The muscles flexed under the black cotton. She swallowed hard. "You're handy," she squeaked. "I like to fix things that are broken," Stephen said softly, taking a step toward her. The kitchen was very small. He was very close. "Do you?" Chloe breathed. "Yes," he murmured. He reached out, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers were rough, warm, and electric. "But some things I prefer to break." The air left Chloe's lungs. Before she could process the innuendo, Bolt barked happily, breaking the spell. Stephen pulled back, a flicker of regret in his eyes. "The drive is on the table, Chloe. Check the logs. I'll see you on Monday." He turned and walked out, leaving Chloe standing in her kitchen with a fixed sink and a heart that was beating so fast she thought it might explode. Chapter 7. The Gala. The charity gala for the City Zoological Society was the kind of event where the champagne cost more than Chloe's college tuition and the hors d'oeuvres were too pretty to eat. Chloe stood near the ice sculpture, smoothing the fabric of her dress. It was an emerald green silk gown that hugged her curves and featured a slit high enough to make her Catholic grandmother cross herself. She felt exposed, out of place, and ridiculous. "Stop fidgeting!" a voice murmured in her ear. "You look breathtaking!" Chloe jumped, nearly dropping her clutch. Stephen Colton had materialized beside her. He was wearing a tuxedo that fit him with criminal perfection, the black fabric straining slightly against his broad shoulders. His bow tie was undone, draped loosely around his neck, a calculated look of nonchalance that made every woman in the room stare. "I'm not fidgeting," Chloe lied, her heart doing a traitorous little flip at his British accent. "I'm adjusting, and you're late. The donors are asking where the alpha of the industry is." "Let them ask," Stephen said, taking a flute of champagne from a passing waiter and handing it to her. "I was busy ensuring the perimeter was secure." "Secure against what? Angry librarians?" Chloe teased. Stephen didn't smile. His gold eyes were scanning the room, alert and predatory. "Something like that?" Suddenly, the crowd near the entrance parted. A man walked in. He was handsome in a slick, manufactured way, too much hair gel, teeth too white, wearing a suit that shimmered under the chandeliers. "Hudson Williams," Stephen growled. The sound came from deep in his chest, a low rumble that vibrated through the floorboards. Chloe frowned. "The tech mogul? I thought he was your competitor in AI, not everything." Hudson spotted them. A smirk plastered onto his face. He beelined for them, moving with a prowling grace that mimicked Stephen's, but lacked the raw power. "Stephen," Hudson said, his voice oily. "I didn't think you'd show. I heard your your company, was having PR issues with stray dogs." "Hudson." Stephen nodded curtly. His body blocked Chloe, shielding her. Hudson stepped to the side, his eyes raking over Chloe in a way that made her skin crawl. "And who is this tasty little morsel? New assistant? Or did you finally buy yourself a pet?" The air around Stephen instantly dropped 10 degrees. "Careful," Stephen said softly. It was the quietest he had ever spoken, yet it carried across the noise of the gala like a gunshot. "She is my crisis manager, and she is not for consumption." Hudson laughed, stepping closer to Chloe. He reached out to touch her bare arm. "Crisis manager? Pretty thing like you? I have a crisis in my penthouse you could manage." Snap. Before Hudson's fingers could graze her skin, Stephen's hand shot out. He grabbed Hudson's wrist in a grip that looked bone-shattering. "I said," Stephen snarled, his eyes flashing with a terrifying light, "do not touch her!" The music seemed to stop. People turned to look. Hudson winced, his knees buckling slightly under the pressure. "Stephen," Chloe whispered, tugging on his sleeve. "People are watching. The stock price." Stephen didn't look at the crowd. He looked at Hudson. "Leave, before I forget we are in civilized company." Hudson yanked his hand back, cradling his wrist. He glared at Stephen, then sneered at Chloe. "Check your leash, Colton. She smells too sweet to keep hidden forever." Hudson turned and disappeared into the crowd. Stephen stood frozen, his chest heaving, his fists clenched. Chloe stared at him. She should be scared. A CEO just physically assaulted a rival at a gala, but looking at his rigid back, all she felt was a strange, magnetic pull. "Stephen," she said softly. He turned to her. His eyes were wild, dilated. He looked like he wanted to tear the room apart. "Get the car," he rasped. "We're leaving. Now." Chapter 8. The Almost Kiss. The valet brought the Mustang around. Stephen didn't wait for him to open the door. He slid into the passenger seat, his long legs cramped in the vintage footwell. Chloe jumped into the driver's seat, threw her heels into the back, and gunned the engine. She drove fast, the V8 engine roaring as they tore down the highway away from the city lights. The inside of the car was thick with tension. Stephen was staring out the window, his hand gripping the door handle so hard the leather creaked. "You want to tell me what that was?" Chloe asked, her hands tight on the wheel. "You almost broke his wrist, Stephen, over a bad pickup line?" "It wasn't a pickup line," Stephen muttered, his voice rough. "It was a threat. He's a tech bro with a spray tan," Chloe argued. "He's not a threat. You acted like a jealous boyfriend." Stephen whipped his head around. "Is that what you think I am? Jealous?" "I don't know what you are," Chloe shouted, glancing at him. "You're intense. You're possessive. You fix my sink and feed my dog, and then you almost brawl at a black tie event. You're confusing me, Stephen." "I am trying," Stephen gritted out, "to keep you safe." "Safe from what?" "From him. From me." Chloe slammed on the brakes. The Mustang screeched to a halt on the deserted shoulder of the bridge overlooking the skyline. Silence filled the car, broken only by the ticking of the cooling engine and their heavy breathing. Chloe turned in her seat. "Safe from you? What does that mean?" Stephen unbuckled his seatbelt. He turned to her, his face illuminated by the dashboard lights. He looked tortured. "You have no idea what I am, Chloe. You think I'm just a man with a temper. If you knew, you'd run." "I don't run," Chloe whispered. "I fix things, remember?" She reached out, placing her hand on his cheek. His skin was burning hot, feverish. He leaned into her touch, his eyes fluttering closed. "Chloe," he groaned. He moved fast. One hand tangled into her hair, pulling her toward him. The other grabbed her waist, lifting her over the center console. Chloe gasped as she collided with his chest. He smelled of musk, adrenaline, and danger. Their faces were inches apart. She could feel his breath on her lips. His gaze dropped to her mouth, dark with hunger. "Stephen," she breathed, tilting her head up. He leaned in. His lips brushed hers, a feather-light touch that sent a jolt of electricity straight to her core. It wasn't a kiss yet. It was the promise of one, the promise of something devastating. Chloe closed her eyes, parting her lips, ready to surrender. Suddenly, Stephen stiffened. He gasped, pulling back as if he had been burned. He shoved himself against the passenger door, his chest heaving. "No!" he choked out. He looked at the moon through the windshield. It was almost full, heavy, and orange in the sky. "No, not now. Not like this." "Stephen?" Chloe asked, hurt flashing in her eyes. "Drive," he commanded, not looking at her. His voice was cold, distant. "Take me to the tower, and then go home. Lock your door." "But drive!" he roared, the sound echoing in the small car like a thunderclap. Chloe flinched. She swallowed her tears, shifted the car into gear, and drove him back in silence. Chapter 9. The Warning Signs. 2 days passed. Chloe hadn't seen Stephen since the bridge. The atmosphere at Colton Enterprises was suffocating. The staff walked on eggshells. Even Weston Grady looked like he hadn't slept in a week. "Bestie, the vibes are rancid," Sophie whispered, peeking over her monitor. "Dr. Kinsey has been going up to the penthouse with a medical bag every hour. Do you think Stephen is sick?" "I don't know," Chloe said, staring at the elevator. "But I'm going to find out." "He said no visitors," Sophie warned. "Like, strictly. Security is on high alert." "I'm not a visitor," Chloe said, grabbing a file folder as an excuse. "I'm his crisis manager, and he's having a crisis." She took the elevator to the 90th floor. When the doors opened, the air hit her. It was heavy, hot, and smelled metallic like ozone and copper. The lights were dimmed low. "Stephen!" she called out, her heels clicking on the marble. The door to his office was ajar. She pushed it open. The office was a wreck. A chair was overturned. Papers were scattered everywhere. Stephen was standing by the reinforced window, staring out at the setting sun. He was shirtless. Chloe gasped. His back was covered in sweat, his muscles trembling violently. Deep scratches marked the mahogany desk as if someone had clawed at it. "I told security." Stephen's voice was a ragged growl. "No one comes up here." "I was worried," Chloe said, stepping inside. "Stephen, you look... Are you sick? Do you need a doctor?" He turned around slowly. He was wearing dark sunglasses, hiding his eyes. His skin was flushed, his veins prominent against his tan skin. He looked like a man fighting a fever that was trying to burn him alive. "You need to leave, Chloe," he said, his voice straining. "Right now. Leave the building. Go home." "I'm not leaving you like this," Chloe said stubbornly, dropping the file. She walked toward him. "Let me call Dr. Kinsey, or I can drive you to the hospital." "No hospitals," he shouted, stumbling back as she got close. "You don't listen. Why do you never listen?" "Because I care about you, you idiot," Chloe yelled back. Stephen froze. The air in the room seemed to vibrate. He took a step toward her, his movements jerky, unnatural. "You care?" he whispered. He reached up and ripped the sunglasses off his face. Chloe took a sharp breath. His eyes weren't just gold anymore. They were glowing, luminescent, like two burning coins in the dark office. "Stephen, your eyes." "The moon is rising, Chloe," he rasped, clutching his chest. "I can't stop it. Not this time." "The lock?" "I need the lock." "What are you talking about?" Chloe asked, terrified now. "Get out!" Stephen roared, backing away from her toward the heavy steel door of the server room. "Run, Chloe, before I make you run!" Suddenly, the overhead lights flickered and died. A red emergency light began to pulse. "System alert," a robotic voice announced over the intercom. "Security breach detected. Initiating hard lockdown." Heavy steel shutters slammed down over the windows with a deafening clang. The office door behind Chloe hissed and sealed shut with a magnetic thud. Stephen looked at the sealed door, then at Chloe. A look of pure horror crossed his face. "No," he whispered. "Hudson." He fell to his knees, a sound tearing from his throat that wasn't human. It was a snarl. "Get back!" he screamed at her, crawling toward the server room vault. "Lock yourself in the office. Don't look at me." Chapter 10. The Lockdown. The wailing of the alarm was deafening. Red emergency lights pulsed in rhythm with Chloe's racing heart, casting the executive suite into a nightmare of crimson shadows. "Hard. Lockdown. Initiated," the synthetic voice repeated. "Threat level. Critical." Chloe ran to the main office door. She swiped her access badge frantically against the reader. Nothing. The keypad was dead. The heavy magnetic lock hummed with an unbreakable seal. "It's not working," Chloe shouted, turning back to the room. "Stephen, the system is dead. We're trapped." She froze. Stephen wasn't standing anymore. He was on his hands and knees in the center of the room, clawing at the expensive Persian rug. His shirt had ripped down the back, shredded by the sudden, violent expansion of muscles that looked like shifting tectonic plates beneath his skin. "Stephen?" Chloe whispered, her voice trembling. "Get away!" Stephen choked out. His voice sounded like gravel grinding in a mixer. He lifted his head and Chloe gasped. His face was contorted in agony, sweat pouring down his brow. His jaw was set so hard she could hear his teeth creaking. "Into the server room. I have to get inside." "You're having a seizure," Chloe realized, panic overriding her fear. "Oh my God, you're having a seizure!" She rushed toward the desk, grabbing the landline receiver, but there was no dial tone. She checked her phone. 0 bars. The lockdown hadn't just sealed the doors. It had severed the hard lines and engaged a military-grade signal jammer. They were completely cut off. "Don't touch me," Stephen roared. He scrambled backward, away from her, dragging his body toward the reinforced steel door of the server room, a vault designed to withstand corporate espionage and bomb threats. "Stephen, let me help you," Chloe cried, chasing him. "You need a doctor." "I need chains," he gasped, throwing himself against the server room door. He punched the keypad with a trembling hand, entering a code. The heavy steel door hissed open. He threw himself inside the dark, cold room. He turned back to her one last time. His eyes were fully glowing now, 2 orbs of molten gold that didn't look human. They looked ancient. "Chloe," he pleaded, his breath coming in ragged gasps, "no matter what you hear, do not open this door." "Stephen, please, promise me," he screamed. "I promise," she sobbed, terrified. He hit the button. The steel door slammed shut between them with a finality that shook the floor. Chloe heard the heavy bolts slide into place, locking him in the dark. And then the screaming started. Chapter 11. The server room. For 10 minutes, Chloe huddled against the far wall of the executive office, her hands pressed over her ears. The sounds coming from the server room were the stuff of nightmares. It wasn't just screaming. It was the sound of destruction. She heard the screech of metal being torn apart, the crash of heavy server racks being toppled, and a low, guttural roaring that vibrated through the floorboards and into her bones. "He's dying," Chloe thought, tears streaming down her face. "He's having a psychotic break or a heart attack, and he's dying in there alone." She looked at the red light pulsing above the door. "Do not enter." "I promised," she whispered to herself. Crash! Something massive hit the door from the inside. The heavy steel boomed and dented, vibrating in its frame. Chloe flinched. The roaring stopped. Silence. The silence was worse than the noise. It was heavy, suffocating. "Stephen?" she called out, her voice cracking. No answer. "Stephen, can you hear me?" Nothing. Her crisis manager brain kicked in. If he had a medical episode, every second counted. If he had stopped making noise, he might be unconscious. He might have swallowed his tongue. He might be dead. "I can't let a client die," she muttered, wiping her face. "I can't let him die." She stood up, her legs shaking. She walked to the server room door. The keypad was glowing red. She didn't have the code he used, but she had the master override. Stephen had given it to her on her first day, a key card that granted access to all PR-sensitive areas, which included the server banks where the data was stored. "I'm sorry, Stephen," she whispered, her hand trembling as she pulled the white card from her lanyard. "I'm breaking the NDA." She tapped the card against the reader. Beep, access granted. The pneumatic mechanism whined in protest, grinding against the damage. The heavy steel slab jerked, then slowly slid into the wall. Chloe stepped into the doorway, peering into the darkness. The only light came from the blinking LEDs of the destroyed server towers. The room was freezing cold. "Stephen?" she whispered. Movement in the corner, shadows shifting. "Stephen, I'm going to help you. Just—" A low growl cut her off. It wasn't the growl of a man. It was the deep, resonant rumble of a predator that weighed 400 pounds. From the shadows, 2 glowing gold eyes opened. They were at eye level with her. Chloe's blood turned to ice. Chapter 12. "Sit down." The beast stepped into the red emergency light. Chloe stopped breathing. It was a wolf, but calling it a wolf felt like calling a tank a bicycle. It was massive, easily the size of a pony, with fur as black as a starless night. Its muscles rippled under the sleek coat, powerful enough to snap bone like twigs. Its mouth was open, revealing rows of razor-sharp white teeth that dripped with saliva, and it was staring right at her. "What?" Chloe's voice failed. The wolf let out a snarl, ears flattening against its massive skull. It looked confused, agitated. Fighting the agonizing pull of the blood moon, a lunar event that stripped away human reason and left only pure, violent instinct. It took a step toward her, claws clicking on the concrete floor. Chloe backed up, hitting the doorframe. "Nice doggy," she squeaked, her brain short-circuiting. The wolf lunged. It moved with a speed that blurred the air. 1 second it was across the room, the next it was towering over her, pinning her into the corner. Hot breath washed over her face. Chloe squeezed her eyes shut, waiting for the bite, waiting for the end. "This is it," she thought. "I'm going to be eaten by a mutant dog in a skyscraper. My mother is going to be so mad." but the bite didn't come. She felt a wet nose press against her neck, a deep inhale. Chloe opened one eye. The monster wasn't biting her. It was sniffing her. It was inhaling her scent like it was oxygen. She looked into its eyes. They weren't the black, soulless eyes of a shark. They were gold, intelligent, tortured. Steven! The realization hit her like a freight train. The security leaks. The weird strength. The way Bolt submitted to him. The big family. "Steven?" she whispered. The wolf jerked back as if her voice had slapped him. He growled again, shaking his massive head, fighting the animal instinct that wanted to claim her or kill her. He snapped his jaws at the air, looking dangerous, unstable. He took a step forward, looming over her aggressively. Chloe didn't run. She didn't scream. She got mad. This was Steven, her arrogant, bossy British client, and he was currently growling at her. Chloe's heart did not tolerate being growled at, not by chihuahuas and not by werewolf kings. She stood up straighter. She pointed her index finger directly at the wolf's wet, black nose. "Hey!" she shouted, using her best bad dog voice. The wolf blinked, stunned. "I do not care how many legs you have," Chloe yelled, her finger shaking slightly but holding firm. "You do not growl at me. I am your crisis manager. I am currently managing a crisis and you are being very unhelpful." The wolf tilted his head, the gold eyes widening in confusion. "Now!" Chloe took a deep breath, channeling every ounce of authority she had used to train Bolt, with mixed results. She pointed at the floor. "Sit!" she commanded. "Down! Now!" The wolf looked at her finger. He looked at her furious face, and then the alpha king of the sovereign pack, the most feared predator in the city, sat. He dropped his heavy hindquarters onto the concrete floor with a thud. He let out a soft woof of air, his ears perking up slightly. Chloe stared at him. "Oh my God," she whispered, her hand dropping. "It actually worked." The wolf whined, a high-pitched, pathetic sound that didn't match his size, and scooted forward on his butt. He laid his massive head gently on Chloe's feet, looking up at her with big, apologetic puppy eyes. Chloe slowly slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor. Her hands were shaking. She reached out, hesitating, and then buried her fingers in the thick, soft fur behind his ears. "You are in so much trouble, Steven," she whispered. The wolf closed his eyes and leaned into her touch, finally at peace. Chapter 13. The Silent Watch. The red emergency light overhead finally stopped pulsing, replaced by the dim, steady hum of the backup generators. The server room was freezing, climate-controlled to keep the machines from overheating, but Chloe didn't feel the cold. She was leaning against a living furnace. The wolf, Steven, hadn't moved for hours. He lay sprawled on the concrete floor, his massive black head resting heavily on his front paws, watching her. Every time Chloe shifted, his gold eyes tracked her movement, alert and possessive, but calm. "So," Chloe whispered, breaking the heavy silence. Her voice echoed slightly in the metal room. "I guess this means the augmented reality game isn't happening?" The wolf let out a huff of air through his nose that sounded suspiciously like a laugh. Chloe reached out tentatively, her hand hovering over his shoulder. The fur was incredibly soft, thick and midnight black, but beneath it, she could feel the tension in his muscles. She also felt something wet. She pulled her hand back. Her fingertips were stained with blood. "You're hurt," she breathed, her heart clenching. She looked closer. His flank was matted with blood, and there were raw, angry abrasions on his shoulders where he had slammed himself against the steel door. "He did that," Chloe realized with a jolt. "He threw himself at a steel wall to keep away from me, to keep me safe." "You idiot," she murmured, her throat tight. "You stubborn, self-sacrificing idiot." She used the hem of her blazer to gently dab at the wound on his shoulder. The wolf flinched, a low rumble vibrating in his chest. But he didn't pull away. He let her tend to him. "This explains so much," Chloe rambled, needing to fill the silence to keep her panic at bay. "The temper, the raw stakes. The way you knew exactly where to scratch Bolt to make him stop barking. She paused, narrowing her eyes at him. Does Bolt know? Is that why he submitted to you? Is my dog part of your club? The wolf blinked slowly, which Chloe interpreted as a yes. Unbelievable, she sighed, sliding down until her head rested against his warm flank. She was exhausted. The adrenaline crash was hitting her hard. My Chihuahua has higher security clearance than I do. The wolf shifted, curling his massive body around her like a protective wall. He nudged her hand with his wet nose, then licked her fingers, cleaning the blood off her skin. The gesture was so tender, so intimately human, despite the form, that Chloe felt tears prick her eyes. "You're not a monster, Stephen," she whispered into his fur, her eyelids growing heavy. "Monsters don't lock themselves in vaults to save people." The wolf rested his chin gently on her ankle. The rhythmic thumping of his massive heart against her back was a lullaby. Despite the metal room, despite the danger, despite the fact that she was cuddling with a lethal predator, Chloe felt safer than she had in years. She closed her eyes and the darkness took her. Chapter 14. The morning after Chloe woke up to the sound of a pneumatic hiss. "System reboot complete," the robotic voice announced. "Lockdown lifted." She groaned, stretching. Her neck was stiff. She reached out, expecting to feel thick fur, but her hand landed on warm, smooth skin. Chloe froze. Her eyes snapped open. She wasn't leaning against a wolf anymore. She was leaning against a man. A very naked, very asleep man. Stephen was sprawled on the floor, his head resting on his arm. The morning light filtering in from the hallway illuminated the long, jagged scratches on his back, remnants of the night's violence. Chloe scrambled backward, her heels clicking on the concrete, covering her eyes with one hand. "Oh God, Stephen, wake up!" Stephen stirred. He groaned, a deep, rough sound, and pushed himself up to a sitting position. He rubbed his face with his hands, his muscles flexing as he moved. He seemed unbothered by his lack of clothing. "Chloe?" His voice was raspy, thick with sleep. The British accent was back, and it sounded like gravel and velvet. "Don't look at me!" Chloe squeaked, ripping off her blazer and throwing it at his head. "Put this on, or wrap it around something. Jesus, Stephen!" Stephen caught the blazer with supernatural reflexes. He looked at the jacket, then down at himself, and finally at Chloe's bright red face. A slow, tired smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Prude," he murmured. He tied the blazer around his waist, it barely covered the essentials, and stood up. He winced, rolling his injured shoulder. "You're bleeding," Chloe said, dropping her hand now that he was decent-ish. She tried to be professional, but it was hard when the CEO of the company was half naked and looking like a Greek god who'd been in a bar fight. "It will heal," Stephen said dismissively. "My kind heals fast." He walked over to her, his gold eyes serious now. The playfulness vanished. "Chloe, last night—" "You're a werewolf," Chloe said flatly. "A real, actual werewolf. Like in the movies, except less CGI and more big." "I am a lichen," Stephen corrected gently, "the alpha of the sovereign pack. And He looked away, shame flickering in his gaze. "I didn't want you to find out like this. I wanted to protect you from my world." "By lying to me?" Chloe crossed her arms. "I'm your PR manager, Stephen. Do you know how hard it is to spin a story when I don't know the main character is a canine?" "I was afraid you would run," he admitted, his voice quiet. He took a step toward her. "Most humans. They see the wolf, and they see a beast. They run." "I didn't run," Chloe pointed out. "No." Stephen looked at her with an intensity that stole her breath. "You told me to sit, and you stayed." He reached out, his large hand cupping her cheek. His thumb traced her lower lip. The touch was electric. "Why did you stay, Chloe?" Chloe looked up at him. "Because I don't abandon my clients," she whispered. "And because I think I prefer the wolf to some of the men I've dated. Stephen let out a rough laugh. Come, he said, taking her hand. We need to go to the penthouse. I need clothes, and then I need to tell you everything about the pack, about Hudson, and about why I can't let you leave. Chapter 15. The Surrender. The penthouse shower was large enough to fit a car, which was fortunate because Stephen needed the space. Chloe waited in the living room, staring at the skyline. Her world had tilted on its axis. Werewolves were real, her boss was their king, and Hudson Williams was apparently a rival alpha running a puppy mill from hell. The bathroom door opened. Stephen walked out, drying his hair with a towel. He was wearing fresh gray sweatpants and nothing else. The water droplets on his chest tracked down over defined abs and disappeared into the waistband. We need to talk about Hudson, Stephen said, walking over to the wet bar and pouring 2 glasses of amber liquid. He hacked the building. He wanted me to kill you, Chloe. He wanted to trigger a frenzy. He failed, Chloe said, taking the glass he offered. She took a sip of the whiskey. It burned, grounding her. This time, Stephen said darkly. He paced the room, his agitation returning. But now, you know. That puts a target on your back. The pack laws are strict. Humans aren't supposed to know we exist. So what? You're going to fire me? Chloe challenged, setting the glass down. You're going to wipe my memory. I should, Stephen growled. He stopped in front of her. I should send you away. To Europe. Somewhere safe where Hudson can't find you. I'm not going anywhere. Chloe stepped into his space, tilting her head up. I don't run, Stephen. I fix things. And right now, you have a Hudson problem. I can fix it. Why? Stephen demanded, grabbing her upper arms. His grip was firm, desperate. Why put yourself in danger for a job? It's not for the job, Chloe shouted. Silence stretched between them. It's not for the job, she whispered, her voice trembling. It's for you. Stephen stared at her, his pupils dilating until his eyes were almost entirely black. Chloe. I was lonely, she confessed, the words spilling out. Before this, I was successful and busy and completely alone, and then I met you. And you're arrogant and bossy, and you have a tail sometimes, but you see me. You really see me. I see nothing else, Stephen groaned. God, Chloe, do you know how hard it has been to smell you every day, to hear your heart beat across the room? He pulled her closer, his body heat searing through her clothes. You are my mate, he rasped, the British accent thick with emotion. My soul is tethered to yours. The wolf recognized you the moment you walked into that club and tried to buy me for $50. Chloe's eyes widened. Mate? Like soulmates? More, he swore. It means I belong to you. It means if you leave, I will go mad. It means I would burn this city to the ground to keep a scratch off your skin. Then don't send me away, Chloe breathed, wrapping her arms around his neck. Keep me. Always, he vowed. He lowered his head and captured her lips. It wasn't like the almost kiss in the car. This was possession. It was hunger. Stephen kissed her like he was starving, his tongue sweeping into her mouth, tasting her, claiming her. Chloe melted against him, her fingers tangling in his damp hair. He lifted her effortlessly, wrapping her legs around his waist. Chloe gasped as he carried her toward the massive bedroom, never breaking the kiss. Say it. He growled against her lips as he laid her down on the silk sheets, his body hovering over hers, heavy and hard. Tell me you're mine. I'm yours, Chloe whispered, pulling him down. I'm yours, Stephen. And as the Alpha King finally claimed his queen, Chloe knew one thing for sure. This was definitely worth more than $50. Chapter 16. The Leak. The morning sun filtered through the penthouse curtains, casting a soft glow over the tangled sheets. Chloe lay with her head on Stephen's chest, listening to the slow, steady rhythm of his heart. For the first time in her life, the spin doctor didn't want to check her phone. She didn't want to think about headlines or stock prices. She just wanted to stay here, wrapped in the arms of the Alpha King. You are thinking too loud, Stephen murmured, his voice a deep rumble against her ear. He traced the line of her spine with his hand. Stop analyzing. Just be. I can't help it, Chloe sighed, looking up at him. My brain is a browser with 3,000 tabs open, and you just opened a whole new window called My Boyfriend is a Werewolf. Stephen smirked, leaning down to kiss her forehead. Boyfriend. I believe the term is mate. It's significantly more permanent. There is no unsubscribing from this. Chloe Hart. We'll see about that, she teased. If you leave the toilet seat up, I might reconsider the burn. Chloe's phone, which she had left on the nightstand, began to vibrate violently. It wasn't a text notification. It was the code black ringtone, a sound she reserved for catastrophic disasters. Stephen groaned, tightening his grip on her. Ignore it. I can't, Chloe said, sitting up and pulling the sheet around her. She grabbed the phone. It's Sophie. She never calls at 7 a.m. unless the building is on fire. She slid the answer button. Sophie, tell me it's good news. Bestie, do not freak out. Sophie's voice was high-pitched and breathless. But you need to turn on the news, like right now, Channel 5, and maybe pour yourself a drink. Chloe grabbed the remote and flicked on the TV mounted on the wall. The screen filled with the breaking news banner. A reporter was standing outside the Colton Enterprises tower, their current location. Shocking allegations have surfaced this morning regarding Colton Enterprises, the reporter shouted over the wind. A whistleblower report, allegedly leaked by rival tech mogul Hudson Williams, claims that CEO Stephen Colton is running an illegal, off-the-books genetic testing facility. The report alleges human experimentation, dangerous steroid enhancement, and biological hazards. Chloe's blood ran cold. He's spinning the werewolf biology, she whispered. He's framing the pack's strength as illegal steroids and experiments. The FBI has announced a preliminary investigation, the reporter continued. Federal agents are expected to arrive within the hour. Stephen sat up, the sheet falling to his waist. His face hardened, the relaxed lover vanishing instantly, replaced by the Alpha King. His eyes flashed gold. He dares? Stephen snarled, swinging his legs off the bed. He brings the humans into our war? If the FBI finds the holding cells, if they find the chained rooms, they'll think it's a torture dungeon, Chloe finished, her mind racing. Stephen, this destroys you, not just the company. If they test your DNA, they'll find the anomaly. They'll lock you in a lab for real. Stephen stood up, naked and terrifying in his rage. Then they do not enter the building. Stephen, you can't stop the FBI. I can, he growled, his fists clenching until his knuckles turned white. I will rally the pack. If Hudson wants a war, he will get one. We will burn him out before the feds even park their cars? No. Chloe scrambled out of bed, grabbing his arm. That's exactly what Hudson wants. He wants you to react violently. If you fight the FBI, you prove you're a monster, you lose everything. Then what do we do? Stephen roared, turning to her. Submit? I do not submit. No, Chloe said, her eyes narrowing. We don't submit, we spin. Get dressed, Stephen. We're going to the war room. Chapter 17. The War Room. The atmosphere in the executive boardroom was toxic. Arthur Penhaligon, the pack elder, was red-faced and shouting. Weston Grady was typing furiously on 3 different laptops. Dr. Fred Kinsey was packing medical supplies into a bag, looking like he was preparing for a siege. We strike now. Arthur slammed his fist on the mahogany table. We send the enforcers to Hudson's estate. We rip his throat out before the midday news. It is the old way. The old way will get you televised on CNN being shot by a SWAT team, Arthur. Chloe's voice cut through the shouting. She marched into the room, wearing a fresh power suit she kept in her office emergency kit. Stephen walked in behind her, silent, radiating a dark, lethal energy. He took his seat at the head of the table, but he didn't speak. He watched Chloe. Who let the human in? Arthur spat. This is pack business. This is war. This is PR, Chloe corrected, throwing her tablet onto the table. Hudson didn't attack you with claws. He attacked you with a PDF file and a press release. You can't claw your way out of a federal investigation." "She's right," Weston muttered, looking up. "The FBI warrant is for genetic malpractice. They're looking for labs, test tubes. If we start killing people, they bring the National Guard." "So we let them find us?" Arthur challenged. "We let them take our blood?" "No," Chloe said, pacing the room. "We give them a better target." She turned to Stephen. "You told me you have spies. You said you had dirt on Hudson that you couldn't use because it was obtained illegally." Stephen nodded slowly. "We stole his hard drives months ago, encrypted financial records, but we can't use them in court without admitting we broke into his servers. I don't need to use them in court." Chloe smiled, a cold, sharp expression that made Weston shiver. "I need to use them in the court of public opinion. Give me the drive." "The drive contains terabytes of data," Arthur scoffed. "Boring numbers, logistics, imports." "Imports?" Chloe stopped, her eyes lit up. "What kind of imports?" "Meat," Stephen rumbled. "Enormous quantities of high-grade raw meat to feed his rogue pack. He hides it under shell companies." Chloe's brain clicked into place. The pieces of the puzzle slammed together. "He's buying thousands of pounds of meat," Chloe murmured. "But he doesn't run a restaurant. He doesn't run a zoo. To the IRS, that looks suspicious. To the public, it looks weird." She turned to Stephen. "Give me the drive, and give me Sophie. You handle the claws. Keep the FBI stalled in the lobby with lawyers and red tape for 2 hours. I handle the optics." Arthur looked at Stephen. "Alpha, you cannot trust the future of the pack to a spin doctor." Stephen stood up. He walked over to Chloe. He didn't look at Arthur. He looked down at her, his gold eyes softening with pride. "She is not just a spin doctor, Arthur," Stephen said, his voice ringing with authority. "She is my mate, and if she says she has a plan, we follow the plan." He handed Chloe a small black USB drive. "Unleash hell, my love." Chapter 18. The Setup. "Okay, Sophie, talk to me. I'm looking at the spreadsheet now. Wow, that is a lot of beef." Chloe was in her office, door locked. Sophie was on video call on the main screen, typing so fast, her fingers were a blur. "It's insane," Sophie said. "Hudson Williams has spent $4 million in the last fiscal year on biological sustainment. He's buying premium cuts, Chloe, ribeyes, Wagyu, for a tech startup warehouse in Queens. He's feeding his army," Chloe muttered, scrolling through the stolen files. "But look at the shipping manifest. He's also importing cages, reinforced steel crates." "Yeah," Sophie crunched on a snack. "Probably for the new recruits when they turn, containment." "Okay." Chloe leaned back, her eyes scanning the data. "So, here is the story Hudson is trying to tell. Colton Enterprises is doing sci-fi experiments. It's scary, but it's abstract. People don't understand genetics." She tapped her pen on the desk. "But here is the story we are going to tell. We have a tech mogul. He has a secret warehouse. He buys millions of dollars of meat. He buys steel cages, and he has 0 records of any animal welfare licenses." Sophie gasped. "Oh my God, Chloe, you're not going to—" "The FBI is looking for a crime," Chloe said, a wicked grin spreading across her face. "Hudson framed us for hurting humans. That's bad. But you know what the internet hates more than anything in the world? People who hurt dogs," Sophie whispered. "Exactly," Chloe said. "We aren't going to accuse him of being a werewolf. That sounds crazy. We're going to accuse him of running the largest, most illegal exotic animal smuggling ring and puppy mill on the East Coast." "That is diabolical," Sophie said admiringly. "If we leak these receipts, Twitter will eat him alive." "We need a face," Chloe said, standing up. "Numbers are boring. We need a victim, someone cute, someone helpless, someone who looks like they survived a terrible ordeal." She looked down at the floor. Bolt was sleeping on his dog bed, chewing on the leg of a destroyed, stuffed bear. He looked up at her, one ear flopped over, his big brown eyes blinking innocently. "Sophie," Chloe said into the headset. "Run down to Dr. Kinsey's office. I need a canine cervical collar, small size. Tell him it's for a PR stunt, not a medical emergency. On it. Why?" Chloe scooped Bolt up. The Chihuahua let out a small grumble, but settled into her arms. "Bolt just got a promotion," Chloe said, kissing the dog's head. "He's about to become the face of the resistance." She turned to the door. "Sophie, get the press release ready. Title it, 'The Truth About Hudson Williams' House of Horrors.' I'm going to schedule a press conference in 30 minutes. By the time the FBI gets past the lobby, they won't be looking for test tubes. They'll be looking for abused puppies." Chloe grabbed her blazer. "Let's go save the Alpha King with a Chihuahua." Chapter 19. The Puppy Mill Press Conference. The lobby of Colton Enterprises was a war zone of camera flashes and shouting reporters. Near the elevators, a team of grim-faced FBI agents and windbreakers was arguing with Stephen's legal team, demanding access to the elevators. "We have a warrant for genetic sampling," the lead agent barked, holding up a paper. "And we have a press conference," Chloe Hart announced, her voice amplified by the podium microphone she had just switched on. The sound screeched through the lobby, silencing the room. Every head turned. The cameras swiveled from the agents to the petite woman standing on the raised stage, wearing a sharp white blazer that screamed innocence. "Ladies and gentlemen of the press," Chloe said, her voice steady. "My name is Chloe Hart. I represent Colton Enterprises. The allegations of human experimentation you heard this morning are false. They are a smokescreen designed to hide a much darker, much uglier truth." The FBI agent paused, frowning. "Ma'am, this is an active federal investigation into the wrong crime," Chloe interrupted. She clicked a remote. The massive screen behind her lit up. It displayed documents. Thousands of them. "These are financial records from Williams Tech, owned by Hudson Williams," Chloe explained, pointing at the screen. "In the last 6 months, Mr. Williams has purchased 50 tons of raw meat. He has purchased reinforced steel containment cages through unlicensed shell corporations. He has soundproofed a warehouse in Queens," the reporters murmured. "Hudson Williams claimed we were experimenting on people," Chloe said, her voice dropping to a hush. "But the truth is, Hudson Williams is running an illegal exotic animal smuggling ring." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "He is trafficking dangerous animals," Chloe continued, spinning the narrative with surgical precision. "Wolves, hybrids, keeping them in tiny cages, breeding them in a puppy mill of horrors." "That's a lie," a reporter from a tech blog shouted. "Hudson is a visionary." "Is he?" Chloe signaled to the side of the stage. "Then explain him." Sophie walked onto the stage. In her arms, she carried Bolt. The crowd went dead silent. Bolt, usually a ball of demonic rage, looked absolutely pathetic. He was wearing a tiny medical-grade neck brace, borrowed from the Pack Clinic. Chloe had rubbed a little water under his eyes so he looked teary. He was trembling, mostly because he wanted to bite the microphone, but to the cameras, he looked traumatized. "This is Bolt," Chloe said, her voice breaking with fake emotion. "He was recovered near one of Hudson's facilities. Look at him." Bolt let out a small, irritated whine. The crowd's heart broke instantly. "Oh!" echoed through the lobby. "Hudson Williams hurts dogs," Chloe declared, driving the final nail into the coffin. "He smuggles them, he abuses them, and he tried to frame Stephen Colton, a known philanthropist and animal lover, to cover his tracks." The FBI agent looked at the screen, then at the crying Chihuahua, and then at his phone, which was suddenly blowing up with calls from his superiors. The internet was already reacting. Jack Savebolt was trending worldwide. Todd Jail Hudson was second. "Agent," Chloe said, locking eyes with the federal officer. "The address of the warehouse is on the screen. If you hurry, you might save the rest of them." The agent looked at his team. "Forget the genetic warrant. We have probable cause for trafficking. Let's move. Get to the warehouse." The FBI team turned on their heels and sprinted out of the lobby, sirens wailing. The press mob chased after them, desperate for footage of the animal ring. In the silence left behind, Stephen stepped out from the shadows behind the stage. He walked up to Chloe, his eyes gleaming with awe. "You are," he whispered, leaning down to brush his lips against her ear, "absolutely terrifying." Chloe smirked, unbuttoning Bolt's neck brace, as the dog immediately tried to bite her finger. "I told you, I handle the optics." Chapter 20. The Private Dance. 1 week later. The news cycle moved fast, but the fall of Hudson Williams was slow and painful. The FBI had raided the warehouse. They found the cages. They found the animals. Hudson's rogue pack members, who were in wolf form and unable to shift back due to the stress and drugs Hudson had been feeding them. To the world, they looked like illegally smuggled wolves. Hudson was arrested for animal cruelty, racketeering, and trafficking. His assets were frozen. His reputation was incinerated. He would spend the rest of his life in prison, and the secret of the werewolves remained safe, disguised as a sad story about exotic pets. But Chloe wasn't thinking about Hudson. She was thinking about the blindfold over her eyes. "Stephen," she laughed, gripping the leather seat of the car, "where are you taking me? If this is another gala, I'm breaking up with you." "No galas." Stephen's voice came from the driver's seat. "We have unfinished business." The car stopped, the engine cut. Stephen came around and opened her door, helping her out. He guided her forward, the sound of muffled bass thumping in the distance. He untied the silk blindfold. Chloe blinked. They were standing in the VIP section of Club Velvet. The club was empty. He had bought it out for the night. The only light came from the soft, purple spotlights and the candles on the table. "You brought me back to the scene of the crime," Chloe smiled, turning to him. Stephen stood before her. He looked devastatingly handsome in a charcoal suit, identical to the one he wore the night they met. But this time his eyes were soft, full of warmth and adoration. He reached into his jacket pocket. "I believe," Stephen said, his British accent thick and husky, "that you offered a transaction." He pulled out the crumpled $50 bill, Ulysses S. Grant still looking judgmental, and held it up. "You asked for a private dance," Stephen murmured, stepping closer, crowding her space until her back hit the velvet curtain. "And I told you it would cost you more than cash." Chloe's breath hitched. She placed her hands on his chest, feeling the steady, powerful beat of his heart. "What's the price, Mr. Colton?" Stephen tossed the $50 bill onto the table. He wrapped his arms around her waist, pulling her flush against him. "You," he whispered, "your heart, your future, your stubbornness. I want all of it. I want the messy bun and the arguments and the demon dog." He leaned down, his forehead resting against hers. "Be my queen, Chloe. Let me take care of you." "Let me protect you." Chloe smiled, tears pricking her eyes. She reached up, tangling her fingers in the hair at the nape of his neck. "You're hired," she whispered. Stephen growled, a low, happy sound, and captured her lips. The kiss was slow, deep, and full of promises. Around them the music swelled, but they were the only two people in the world. Later that night, the vintage cherry red 1965 Ford Mustang rumbled to life outside the club. The top was down, the city lights reflecting off the pristine hood. Stephen walked around to the driver's side, his hand on the door handle. He looked at Chloe with a charming, hopeful grin. "It's a special occasion," he reasoned. "Surely, I can drive." Chloe, sitting in the passenger seat with her sunglasses on at midnight, lowered her frames. She looked at him. She looked at the car. "Stephen," she said sweetly, "I love you. I saved your life. I saved your pack." "Yes?" he asked. "Touch my car, and I will bite you." Stephen laughed, throwing his head back. "Fair enough." He walked around and slid into the passenger seat. Chloe revved the engine, the V8 roaring like a beast. From the back seat, Bolt, wearing a diamond-studded collar, a gift from the Alpha, popped his head up. He looked at Stephen, let out a small yip, and licked Stephen's ear. "See?" Stephen smirked, resting his arm on the door as Chloe peeled out onto the empty street. "He prefers me." "Shut up and look pretty, wolf boy." Chloe laughed, shifting gears. She floored the gas, driving them into the night, ready for whatever crisis or adventure came next. Epilogue. The Queen of Spin 6 months later. The morning sun streamed into the master bedroom of the Colton estate, illuminating the framed jersey on the wall. It wasn't a sports jersey. It was a framed, slightly wrinkled $50 bill with the words, "Best investment I ever made," engraved on the plaque beneath it. Chloe Hart, soon to be Chloe Colton, stood in front of the full-length mirror, critically adjusting the lapel of her white power suit. "You are vibrating again." A deep voice rumbled from the bed. Stephen lay propped up against the headboard, shirtless, watching her with that familiar, heavy-lidded gaze that made her knees weak. Even after 6 months, the sight of the Alpha King in the morning still felt like a fever dream. "I am not vibrating," Chloe argued, grabbing her tablet. "I am strategizing. The engagement party is tonight. Do you know how hard it is to plan a seating chart when half the guests eat raw steak and the other half are vegan influencers from my old agency?" "Put the vegans near the salad bar," Stephen suggested lazily, swinging his legs out of bed. "And put the elders near the exit. They're less grumpy when they have an escape route." "I put the elders at the kids' table," Chloe smirked. "Arthur complained about the DJ playlist, so I revoked his VIP privileges. He's sitting next to Sophie." Stephen laughed, walking over to wrap his arms around her waist from behind. He rested his chin on her shoulder, looking at their reflection, the massive, dangerous Wolf King and the petite human who held his leash. "You have terrified my entire council," Stephen murmured, kissing the sensitive spot below her ear. "Weston asks you for permission before he schedules security drills now. He says you're scarier than I am." "That's because you only bite when you're angry," Chloe said, leaning back into him. "I bite when people mess up my font spacing. It's a different kind of fear." A sharp, high-pitched bark interrupted the moment. Bolt trotted into the room. He was wearing a custom-made tuxedo bandana with a tiny black bow tie. He looked at Stephen, wagged his tail enthusiastically, and then turned to growl at Chloe's heels. "Traitor," Chloe muttered. "He knows who feeds him the good beef," Stephen grinned. He crouched down, and the fierce chihuahua immediately rolled over for belly rubs. "Who's a good pack warrior? You are. You realize the pack has started calling him the Tiny Alpha, right?" Chloe sighed. "I heard a rumor that the Gamma Wolf actually saluted him yesterday. Hierarchy is hierarchy." Stephen shrugged, standing up. He turned Chloe around to face him, his expression turning serious. His gold eyes searched hers. "Are you happy, Chloe?" he asked softly. "This life, the secrets, the politics, the danger, it's a lot to ask of anyone." Chloe looked at him. She thought about her old life, the lonely nights with takeout, the endless spin for clients she didn't care about. Then she looked at the man who had torn a steel door off its hinges to keep her safe. She looked at the ring on her finger, a yellow diamond that matched his wolf's eyes. "I used to fix other people's lives because mine was empty," Chloe whispered, placing her hands on his chest. "Now, I don't need to spin anything, Stephen." "This is the first real thing I've ever had." Stephen smiled, a genuine boyish smile that he saved only for her. "I love you, Spin Doctor." "I love you too, Wolf Boy." "By the way," Stephen whispered, his voice dropping to that husky, dangerous timbre. "Regarding tonight, after the party." "Yes?" Chloe raised an eyebrow. "I booked the entertainment." Chloe froze. "Stephen, please tell me you didn't hire a magician." "No," he smirked, leaning down until his lips brushed hers. "I cleared the schedule, locked the bedroom door, and I believe I still owe you a dance." Chloe laughed, the sound bright and happy in the morning light. She grabbed his tie and pulled him down for a kiss. "Make it a long one, Mr. Colton. I hear your rates are expensive." "For you, my queen," he promised against her lips. "It's on the house." The end.